Welcome back to the PokerStrategy.com TSL number 3. We are here on the greediest map known to man, Terminus RE, for game number 3. We're tied 1-1, looking for who's going to get the big advantage here on game number 3. We are spawning cross positions on the right side as the red Terran. We have FXOqxc. That's a tongue twister. And on the left side, spawning as the blue Protoss, we do have Mill.Adelscott. Let's see who can take the advantage in game number 3. And yet again, I just want to take the time to tell people to sign up at teamliquid.net/raffle. If you do not live in the United States of America, you can sign up, get $50 at your favorite poker website via pokerstrategy.com. And you also get entered automatically if you complete the quiz, entered into a raffle for an all-expense paid trip to Korea. So that's pretty dope.
Now, one thing I want to mention here really quick, Chill, is that Adelscott used a very early chrono boost. I don't know what was up with that, but he did waste a little bit of it there, as it was before that pylon was finished. And also, one other thing, I think watching the players' opening build orders, I mean, it's always important, but I think especially between these two players, what they decide to go here. Now, it doesn't look like either player is going to be going for an expansion F14 or anything like that, as we do have a gateway and a barracks respectively going on. But we'll see if QXC decides to be aggressive here or play the more standard macro style on this map.
Yeah, I'm trying to rationalize that quick chrono boost, and I believe, well, I don't believe, I'm sure, you supply block yourself if you get that chrono boost out that early, but of course you get a faster probe out, so maybe he's looked at it and it's just, he gets more income getting that probe out earlier. The other thing I'm thinking of is I have done that early chrono boost, and what's happened is I kind of get in the zone and just, you know, I'm making probes, my probe finishes, I hit E and I slam C and click, and you just get in that habit. And then you look at your supply and you're at 10 out of 10 with your chrono boost still rolling. So possibility that it was just a common mistake there.
And we do have QXC sending a fairly early scout out. I mean, the timing of this is normal, but if you look at his opponent, Adelscott, he has not decided to scout quite yet. He does have his Zealot on the way, opting never, I believe, in the last games to skip that Zealot at all. A lot of times players will skip it, just go for a Stalker, and hope that your opponent doesn't super rush you. But since he's going against QXC, always a good idea to go ahead and do that. One thing QXC is doing that I really like so far is he's already putting supply depots all around his base. We were mentioning before the game the huge surface area in this map. We've seen players lose time and time again. There's also sight blockers in the back end of your base, that drops and warp prisms and things like that, very well and heavily utilized on this map. The SCV will sneak up in here because Zealots are way too fat and way too slow. They are not good sprinters. We'll see, you know, pretty standard stuff going on here, and no hidden pylons. All three pylons are in clear view of FXOqxc, and it looks like QXC going to be going for a factory here before even starting a command center or anything like that.
Wow, this is going to be interesting. He's got the tech lab on that barracks already researching the concussive shells for his Marauders. He's got a single Marauder out. Kind of the theme that's been happening time and time again is QXC scouting very, very early, extremely early. And Adelscott scouting very late. So he's now been around to scout 12 o'clock, going to be over to scout 3 o'clock shortly. But QXC is already on the map with a Marauder. Taking a look at the production tab, the concussive shells upgrade only has 20 seconds remaining on it, so that's going to be done very quickly. Expansion Nexus started for Adelscott, getting a sentry out. He should be able to stop one barracks, especially with the long rush distance, if QXC decides to attack. This expansion build by Protoss is very common and pretty safe against early aggression.
QXC having a starport on the way now, so he is not going to be expanding super early compared to Adelscott's expansion, which is about halfway completed here. And you can see those units in the center of the map just kind of hanging out. That is only 2 Marauders and a Marine. That should easily be held off. A third Marauder is going to be on the way right now, but QXC has complete map control. He's grabbing that watchtower so he can see his opponent when he decides to move out. And Adelscott, though, will be way ahead in the macro here if the game continues as we are seeing right now. But we'll see what comes out of that starport. Most likely a Banshee, since we see the barracks just lifting off right now. The starport is going to be swapping out on that tech lab as well. And so I'm going to assume he's going to try and do Banshee play, maybe take Adelscott by surprise, because Adelscott may be just assuming that QXC is going to go for a macro style play, especially the last games we've seen. QXC's been super aggressive. Maybe he's hoping he's going to be transitioning here, but it does look like he's going to go for harassment once again.
Yeah, QXC moving forward, he's got to get back. There's no way he's going to be able to do anything with this, and looks like he's in a full retreat. Production tab showing Cloak on the way and a Banshee. You know, this is I would normally say this is a late Banshee. I don't really like it, but Adelscott his style, time and time again, we've seen in TL Opens, we've now seen it in the TSL, and we've seen it when he's playing in other events, is to get a pretty late Robo. Production tab shows he's only got units, probes, and pylons on the way. No Robo, no Forge, nothing that sees cloaked units. So if this Banshee gets in there, and then Adelscott has to start a Robo, it's going to be hard. He's now making the Forge, so looks like he's got that buffer built into his build, so he doesn't lose to Cloak. I'm going to be interested to see if he drops that cannon like he did in the last game.
The annoying thing about trying to detect Banshees with cannons is that the range on the Banshee is still frustrating, and unless your cannons are placed perfectly, there's still vulnerable probes, which means you can't mine from some of your mineral patches. So even that can be insanely frustrating, especially if there's buildings near the edge of your base. You can snipe those quite easily. Now, the Banshee is going to be moving out here. By the time she gets there, it's going to have quite enough energy to utilize that cloak for a while. We have a second Banshee on the way as well. So I think in the next couple of minutes here, it's all going to come down to how does Adelscott react to this, and he doesn't have any cannons on the way that I can see. He's expanding right now, which is just giving more bases for this Banshee to harass. We do have one cannon now.
Yeah, this is looking really bad. We've got the Banshee just waiting, just hanging out, not going to harass. I think he's probably waiting for the second Banshee to roll around to the natural so he can do some two-prong harass. But little does he know, if he just got in there, QXC that is, and started harassing, he'd be able to kill a million probes. But the Banshee's just hanging out. I'm watching them, just egging them on. Like, come on. Forge is researching +1 armor. Twilight Council was started and then canceled and then restarted at the natural, so that's interesting. Meanwhile, QXC transitioning into 4 barracks. He's got his factory still sitting there, but has not done anything with that. And now the Banshee cloaking moving in, and this is a field day, just a probe line asking to be hit. Those probes were asking for it. There's no cannons up at the main base. There's no observer. There's no Robo. And this is not fun times for Adelscott.
The Robo is going to be on the way, keeping in mind that Mill.Adelscott is on 3 base while QXC has not even lifted off his command center, so he needs to be doing a lot of damage here. It's got to be fun to try and track all of these Banshees right now. They're actually both moving to the natural because that is where all the probes have evacuated to. And again, there's really no detection here, and it looks like this Banshee going to cloak right at the last second, causing a lot of harassment here. So many probes are going down, and the probes scrambling everywhere to try and get away from this, but there's just simply no detection. Finally pushes that out because of that one cannon, although the Robo base still isn't done, and that means that the probes up here once again going to be vulnerable.
You know, this is a problem that a lot of StarCraft players have, is they get too focused on the main base. If Adelscott had built this cannon in the main base as opposed to the natural, while the harassment was going on, he would have been fine, but it's just a little bit unfortunate. Now dealing with it well, he's got the cannons up, so he's not going to die from this. He's transitioned out of it pretty well. He's got +1 completing on the ground armies, on the ground units. Taking a look at the income tab, yes, he's lost a lot of probes down at 24, but he's got a lot of chrono boost up. He's got 3 nexuses. Looking at the production tab, does he have blink on the way? No, not yet, but he will have the opportunity to make that. And he's got a cannon down at his 3rd base, so he should be fine from harassment now. Looks like one of the Banshees did go down. Another Banshee running into the 3rd base. Is he going to run into the cannon? No, but he'll run into a tickling sentry and the Stalker taking him out. Another Banshee on the way, but I feel like the harassment is over. However, Adelscott has 3 fully mining bases, and QXC is just now taking his natural.
I think he may have got a little too focused on those Banshees, but he did get 26 kills, which that is a fairly cost-effective harassment right there. QXC just now getting his mining base up, but if you look at the production tab and the units tab, Adelscott is just powering probes. He has 3 probes on the way constantly with chrono boost going down as well. He is ahead in workers right now by 2. There is another Banshee inside of his main base. As we said, it is arriving. He is attempting to harass here. And another thing, though, is that Adelscott killed one of his own probes. I don't know if that they caught a glimpse of that about a minute ago, but that just shows you how much he's trying to micro and move his units around. He now has a Banshee loose in his base, not guarded by those cannons, the positioning not going to be the best here. And at the same time, though, QXC has position in the center of the map. That army is looking fairly scary. The reason he's behind in workers, now he's ahead because he's killed so many, but it's because he's been working on that army. So he also made another Banshee as well with his flying to the center of the map, and we mentioned before his aggressive style. This is exactly what we were talking about.
Oh my god, that Banshee's doing work in the main base. Let me tell you, 7 kills now with an observer out. Looks like Adelscott is going to be able to drive that away, but the Banshee just choppering over back to the natural. Going to be able to do a little bit of harassment here. QXC having the main base, or excuse me, the main army in the middle of the map. Looks like he's going to throw down a command center at his natural, and QXC actually has double engineering base. He's researching +1 attack, which is about to complete, and also working on the infantry armor. Another Banshee coming in at the natural, going to focus down a sentry. Yes, sentry gets taken out. Looks like the second Banshee in the main base was able to be killed by this 2 stalkers and observer pair. So it looks like the harassment is continuing here via QXC's Banshees.
Yeah, trying to snipe those very valuable sentries. The last Banshee getting away with 6 HP. The Observer is going to spot it, though. Needs to make sure to keep following that there. And again, I mean, QXC is sitting in the middle of the map. His +1 attack is now done, leaving another Banshee just with his army. The DPS on the Banshees is very good, even if it is just in your army. I believe that Blink is complete. No, it's just it's a little bit of a ways out. We do have a Ghost Academy completed with the Ghost upgrades as well. QXC just now going to be taking his third, as he does have that Command Center on the way. So, looking at the supply counts, I got to hand to Adele. Still keeping up in supply, 105 to 115, which, considering he's had about 30 kills against him, if not more, that is not too shabby at all. Looks like QXC's gonna be running here. He does sprint with his stim in there, trying to snipe the early Zealots on the side, but the force field's gonna be used. Not trapping that many units, however. This is more just to keep himself in the game. And right now, is QXC gonna commit here or just run away? Looks like he's gonna retreat. At least Adelscott forced to stim, but more reinforcements are on the way.
Yeah, QXC is continuing to reinforce his main army and continuing to produce Banshees, so he's not transitioning into medevacs. And if we look at the production tab, he's got a lot of stuff on the way. He's researching the Mobius reactor for his Ghost energy, then going to transition into making Ghost. EMP very strong against this gateway heavy style, as we've been mentioning, especially with the sentries, which are completely necessary until Zealot Charge is complete. And looks like Zealot Charge not on the way, as QXC begins poking once again. Has he completed 1-1? Yes, he has. Meanwhile, the upgrades for Adelscott, only 1 armor.
Yeah, and the important thing to know about the 1 armor upgrade is when coupled with that Guardian Shield, it does make Marines, it's almost like they're shooting Spud guns, but now QXC knows that, is going to be using +1 attack himself. And so the upgrade's fairly even here. It's just that the +2 is about halfway done for QXC. So it'll be interesting to see what he decides to do with this army. I mean, he has his opponent contained right now, but the problem is that you have him contained to 3 bases, which is not, you know, that big of a contain at all. And I gotta hand it to Adelscott once again. His probe count is still equal to his opponent. He's just been powering probes, taking a little bit of a risk, and cutting his army long enough to get out those probes. You can see a second forge is going to be on the way for Adelscott, and his style is just barely hanging on with the units he needs and then trying to tech up after that. We saw the Colossus tech. Now 4 gateways going down, so I think he'll be okay if QXC doesn't take his advantage. I don't know if he realizes that he's 30 supply ahead right now, and it's going to be QXC's decision on whether he's going to expand again or whether he's going to attack.
Right, and Adelscott is falling vastly behind in the supplies. We just saw him drop 6 chrono boosts on warp gates as well as the forges. He's completed a second forge, that +2 armor, and still working on +1 attack. Looks like Adelscott wants to get aggressive here, but there's a beautiful concave for QXC. A lot of force fields going down, trapping the majority of the units, blinking forward with those stalkers so that the Zealots are able to run right up. Looks like all the units in the front. Oh, big EMP hitting the majority of the stalkers. Sentries down on energy. Looks like the 1-1 upgrades for QXC doing well, but Adelscott pushing forward. He may break this main army, but there's a reinforcing army coming forward. The supplies 130 for QXC, continuing to dwindle while Adelscott is down at 80. Does he have a Colossus on the way? No, he does not. He needs to warp in another round of units. He's praying for the cooldown on those warp gates to finish, so he can warp in a lot of units, warping in all Zealots, but QXC not taking the bait. He's going to sit back and heal up a little bit. He has swapped out that Stargate with the reactor on the factory, so he's not making Banshees anymore, transitioning into medevacs, which are more useful for this massive infantry style of play. And how did QXC get so ahead in the Harvesters? 71 to 58. Wow.
Yeah, that battle may have looked close to the eye, but just look at the supply counts, 105 to 157, and I have been keeping an eye on the production tab of QXC. He is powering units like crazy, having 6 Marauders on the way at a time, as well as a handful of Marines. But anyways, there is going to be a drop here in the main base of Adelscott, once again trying to focus down that forge. Adelscott not going to fall for it this time, focusing down the medevac. He is going to take out these Marauders, but again, the Marauders, since they're so powerful with their upgrades, still able to take out. Is he actually going to win that battle? 4 Marauders just taking on about 6 Stalkers there, just showing you the power of those upgrades and stem. And now Adelscott is forced to back out and clean this up right now. So again, QXC has position on the map, even stimming 1 Marine to run in here, not going to be wasting any scans or anything like that. And the intel he just gathered is huge. He saw that the Zealots do not have charge. He saw the Robo-Bay being chrono boosted there, and also that there is only 1 Colossus on the map. So he is going to decide, it looks like, to go ahead and start utilizing those drops in that blind area of the base that we mentioned before.
Right, and Adelscott is just so gas-starved. As we saw him take on MVP, the style he did was only warping in Zealots, and I'll finish this thought after, as QXC is continuing to press the aggression, taking out slow Zealots so easily, kiting them back and forth. Meanwhile, he's got a large Marine and Marauder ball sitting in the main base, going to stim up, take out the cannon, and he's continuing to attack back in the natural. The Colossus trying to do damage, but it does not have that extended thermal lance. Meanwhile, back in the main base, Zealots and Stalkers being warped in to try to deal with the drop going on. Looks like QXC is going to win that battle, and he's also doing very well in the main base, stimming and running back, doing a little bit of dance micro. Vikings now coming in to try to deal with that Colossus. I believe QXC is going to lose the middle battle, but he will kill the Colossus. But he is largely winning the battle in the main base, taking out so many buildings, also taking out the Forge. The battle in the center continuing to rage on. Looks like QXC is reinforcing right into the majority of the Protoss army. And oh my god, the main base is still deeply, deeply under siege by QXC.
Yeah, especially if QXC starts focusing down some pylons. I mean, 4, 5, 8 gateways are going to be unpowered in a matter of seconds. I don't know if Adelscott's going to have what it takes to hold off the main base. And the micro battle in the center was pretty intense. QXC, crazy micro, was individually microing units there to keep them alive as long as possible. It looks like Adelscott may be able to hold this off, but as I was saying, the pylons getting focused down. There's 5 unpowered gateways, no 6 right in front of us, and he's not going to be able to warp in the units he needs to clean this out. Even if he does, though, he's going to have to put down more pylons to start reproducing. The supply count's definitely telling the story of this game. 156 to 77 supply right now, and there's a huge army just kind of festering over here on the right side. I guess festering isn't the right word, but it's what I decided to go with anyways, in the center of the map. And so also taking another base, that's going to be QXC's 4th base, so he could not be more ahead at this stage of the game.
Right, and QXC feels no pressure whatsoever, so he doesn't need to change that into a planetary fortress, instead opting for the more economic orbital command. And what's really going wrong here for Adelscott, what we saw him do on Zelnega Caverns was he keeps those gas units alive. That's how he likes to play. He blinks the Stalkers out, sacrifices Zealots, and invests that gas into upgrades. Whereas in this game, he's been dropped over and over. He's been harassed, so he hasn't really been able to hit that stride. And he's forced to donate gas units, and he's just been gas starved all game. And this may be the killing blow as QXC stimming, running in. He's got, oh my god, a lot of Vikings focusing down that Colossus. And now with the ball moving in with Marauders and Marines. And +2, +3 on those infantry upgrades. Force field going down, but I don't think those Marauders are even going to care. They're probably going to be happy to be trapped in there, and now they've got a wall in front of the Zealots. And even if Adelscott saves this, he's got a supply deficit that is 2-1.
Yeah, I mean, he did hold that off, and he still is in the game. We can't completely count him out, but everything is stacked against him. Just looking at the income tab, it's almost double here for QXC as he did throw down all those mules. They are just now running out of time. He has another command center on the way and a handful of ghosts. How many? Does he have a bunch of ghost academies? Oh, he has a bunch of ghost academies on the way. Inside the main base of QXC is 3 ghost academies going down. He does have a nuke on the way, so I think he's just trying to go out in style here, but I don't even know if Adelscott can hold on long enough to see it.
Yeah, I don't think so. QXC is continuing to pressure, and the Proud... Oh my god, big EMP on every sentry! There's 2 sentries being warped in. Oh my god, another EMP, another EMP, another EMP! All the Protoss army is completely melting under the will of QXC as he stims forward, and Adelscott forced to say GG, and I'm forced to agree with that. QXC showed a dominant harassment style here on a map where it is not particularly favored. Extremely well-constructed game by QXC.
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting because even though his harassment was super effective, doing it Pokemon style there, it's that the map is so huge that Adelscott took the risk and kept making probes. So even after 26 or 30 kills on those Banshees, they were equal in the worker count. Of course, he was behind in the army count, but that just shows you on the huge maps how difficult it can be to pull off harassment. I mean, if QXC flew over 3 Banshees and only killed 5 or 6 probes, which it would be good on a smaller map, he would have been very far behind. So I gotta hand it to him for taking a risk that big on a map like this. I definitely think Adelscott was not prepared. His cannons were not in time. His robotics was nowhere in sight, and maybe QXC knows Adelscott's playstyle well enough to realize, well, you know, he's probably not going to be prepared for this. I do still have the game open, and we are 25 minutes into the game right at the end of it. Thermal Lance was not even completed yet, and Protoss Weapons Level 2 not completed as well. And I mean, QXC was even getting building armor upgrade and stuff you very rarely see, just showing you how far ahead he was. Triple supply there, and very phenomenal play here from QXC. And of course, this does mean that Adelscott has to win the next 2 games if he wants to win this best of 5, as it is now 2-1 in the favor of QXC.
Yeah, and that's definitely not something that's beyond Adelscott. I think he could do it if he really hits his stride, gets those upgrades working for him. You raised an interesting question in that last game, Husky, in that was QXC doing a build that's just, QXC versus Protoss, or was he doing a build that's QXC versus Adelscott? And it's a really interesting question to ask, and I don't have an answer, but I'd like to kind of think through it. Adelscott has shown that he is vulnerable to cloaked units. However, QXC has shown that he has a tendency to move towards Banshee, so we can't really answer it. It just ended up working out perfectly there on Terminus RE, and Adelscott played a little bit into QXC's hand. But I want to mention a few things that Adelscott did really well. He held up that first little bit of aggression, which wasn't designed to do too much damage, but it's easy as a Protoss to throw down that Nexus on big maps too early, and then you get caught by any sort of quick concussive shell builds. His build was well timed for that, and also, even when he was giving up supply in those big battles, his force fielding and blinking was just incredible. Even though he was down 40, 60 supply, he was still winning battles that arguably he shouldn't have. Of course, it wasn't enough to get him back in the game, but he showed if we ever get on even ground in those big, bulky gateway units against infantry battles, he's a scary man to be up against.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to mention is that Adelscott and QXC did meet each other in TSL Qualifier 5, just so if people are wondering, have they faced each other before? Adelscott did win that 2-1, so if this was a best of 3, it would have gone to QXC 2-1, and that just shows that both these players are fairly evenly matched, and the series could go either way. I mean, yeah, Adelscott is down a game right now, which is huge in a best of 5 on going into game number 4, which, by the way, will be Crevasse, which is another huge macro map, but yeah, they have faced each other before. Adelscott taking that one. QXC right now would have taken this one if it's a best of 3. Of course, it is going to be a best of 5. And again, it is a huge macro style map. So is Adelscott going to play as greedy as he did last game, or is he going to be a little bit more prepared for that early aggression? It'll be cool to see what he plans to do. I don't know if he's going to be able to do the same build, whatever build he had planned, just because QXC's style is so aggressive, and we have seen it in all the games, I would say, so far. It doesn't even matter what map we're on. So QXC trying to end these games super fast. Maybe he wants to just punish Adelscott for going super upgrade heavy. And I feel like both players have researched each other. So far, though, I think it's paying off a little bit more for QXC.
Yeah, and Crevasse, it's similar to Terminus in that if you take your 3 bases, one of them being a little bit less valuable in the in-base expansion, they can still be defended by 3 chokes. However, Terminus RE is nicer in that choke is at your natural, very easy to defend. There's one path into it. Crevasse has all these paths running through it. If you look at your natural base once we get into the game, there's a lot of paths running into the natural, and it's a very, very wide choke. So I'm going to be interested to see how is Adelscott going to deal with this, as it's not a very comfortable fast expansion map for the majority of Protosses, and is he able to deal with the QXC harassment, which kind of deconstructed him in the other game on a map like Crevasse, where that harassment is going to be even better, even more well-tailored. So I think we're not going to hold off any longer. We're going to answer those questions and more as we jump into game number 4 right after this.